the committee report, or reports which we have already tabled in this House. And unfortunately, the leader of majority never took time to read those reports. The minority leader did not take time to read the two reports. We have the substantive report and an addendum. And these actually would have settled his issues. And may I confirm to the House that those reports are now reports of the House. And therefore, whatever is in there are acts of this House and cannot be wished away. First and foremost, may I speak about the head of public service. That office substantially differs with what we have in this particular bill, and the reason it differs is because we also, as a committee, had issues in the way it was being formed. Therefore, we had to align the formation of that office with...
There's a point of order from...
Yes.
Member for Funyula. What's the point of order?
I had to disrupt or to interrupt my good friend Sir George, and Sir George used to be a good man the last time. Point of Honorable Speaker, what the leader of minority is making reference to is the bill. What has been indicated on the order paper is the bill. The committee report is not in the order paper. So for Sir George to refer to us the committee report that's not on the order paper, I will need your guidance, Honorable Speaker. Because we have been making this mistake, whether it's a mistake or it's not a mistake, continuously. And we must draw that line very clear. A committee report that's supposed to be debated must be diarized on the order paper. What is on the order paper is the bill. And the bill has not been amended, has not been withdrawn to be amended, so that's presented in the organized form that complies with the Constitution. Probably in the fullness of time, you might be required to guide the House on how do we proceed. Do we proceed to debate the committee report, or do we proceed to debate the bill? Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Undo, the reason I keep on urging committee chairs to bring and table their committee reports is because they're part of the process of legislation. And once you have a committee report tabled in the House, and we always insist that it must come at least before the bill goes to committee stage, is to be part of the information available to members in carrying out their debates. So Murugara is not out of order. He has the right to make reference to the report. You also have a right to make reference to that report. In fact, you have a right to extract material from that report to amend the bill at a committee stage if you wish. That's why we have those committee reports.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. That is 100% correct. And I wish to inform Honorable Oundo, my friend too, that when the leader of majority was moving this bill, he actually, in extenso, relied on the report to say this is how the bill is going to be amended clause by clause. And that is the process of legislation. The reason the bill is committed to a committee is so that the committee is able to look at the constitutionality of the bill and how else it can be aligned to policy and to any other statute as it may be necessary. So I wish to state to the House that the office of the head of public service, which is proposed to be created as several amendments under that provision so as to align it with the Constitution. And therefore, it implores upon the leader of minority to actually read the proposed amendments. Then he would have possibly a change of mind. If he does not read and he reads only the bill, then he would possibly be entitled to make the arguments he's making here, but that has to be in his contribution to this debate. It cannot be a preliminary point to be decided on. And that's where he has actually gone wrong. He has digressed from the debate we are having. We have made it elaborate that the office of the head of public service is going to be in the executive office of the president. It is not as we have it here. Number two, it is an office in the public service. That now falls under Article 132 and 134 of the Constitution. Therefore, that cures the defect. The rest of it, we have analyzed what the functions are, which are not in a conflict at all with the office of the Chief Cabinet Secretary, because we know this exists. In the draft bill, there may have been a conflict, but that has been removed. Therefore, I would urge the leader of minority to look at the report and then form possibly a second opinion. What he has elaborately told the court is the dissenting opinion of Honorable Otiende Amolo, and that is going to be the debate for those who are opposing the bill. But Honorable Otiende Amolo opposed after we actually made all these recommendations which are within his knowledge. As regards the Chief Administrative Secretary, again, kindly do read the report and the addendum. It's very important because we were alive to the fact that this position had been annulled twice by the courts. Therefore, we had to seal the loopholes which are likely to be there when it comes to the positions vis-a-vis what is provided for in the Constitution. So what have we done? Number one, we have made it no mention whatsoever. If it is mentioned in the bill, we have recommended that these are not state officers. State officers are created or are provided for by the Constitution. These are not state officers. They are offices that are established under the Public Service Commission. So that, in that manner, number one, we have complied with the Constitution.
Honorable Speaker, I thank you for the opportunity. If you read Article 260 of our Constitution, it describes who a state officer is. And one fundamental issue around it is that anyone who gets a pay from consolidated funds is a state officer. So how you are going to remove these people who will be earning their perks from the exchequer from being called state officer, Honorable Speaker? Why are we shooting ourselves in the foot just to appease some 22 people who are idling out there, Honorable Speaker? Let us follow the law and do what the law prescribes.
And unfortunately, they may be 10, not 22. They may be 5. We don't know what that number is going to be because it is now reserved for the Public Service Commission to work on the element of complement of that particular office. But let me make it clear. State officers are actually set out in the Constitution who they are. Now that CASs are not in there, then they are excluded. They are not state officers, and as such, we cannot say they do fall under that provision of the Constitution. Number two, we have also redefined what their functions are, and principally, they are assistants to cabinet secretaries. They are going to work under the direction of the cabinet secretaries to assist them in meetings, to assist them in government portfolio, and whatever other assignment cabinet secretaries are going to assign to them. We have not whatsoever provided that they are in between cabinet secretaries and the principal secretaries. In fact, there is no mention of the principal secretary in the provisions we are talking about. In essence, what we are saying, it is that these CASs will be assisting, they will be helping cabinet secretaries, while principal secretaries are the technocrats. The people are supposed to be accounting officers and are supposed to administer the various state departments which are under them. There is no provision whatsoever that a CAS is going to administer a state department, whether assigned to him by the minister or otherwise. There is no provision for that. That is not one of the functions we have. Therefore, looking at this in totality, Mr. Speaker, I believe what is being raised by the leader of minority and those who have supported it are actually debates that are supposed to be in opposition to the bill, and this can only be sustained if they have read the report itself and the addendum. They must also know that we have the third reading of this bill, the committee of the whole house, where all the amendments that are proposed will actually be executed. The arguments being advanced now will totally change once this bill goes through the committee of the whole house, because unless those amendments are within their knowledge, they cannot be hard to say that what we are saying is unconstitutional. Therefore, in my view, the debate by the leader majority is preemptive, it is premature, and it is a debate. It is not a point of law that would amount to a point of order on constitutionality, and therefore kindly do overrule him.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, you are being invited here by the leader of minority to give a ruling on the constitutionality of the two items that are contained in the National Administration Amendment Bill. Honorable Speaker, the issues of the CAS is an issue that has been canvassed in almost 4 courts in this country, with rulings that have been delivered. And the dissenting ruling of Justice Ongundu was very clear. She had no issue about the constitutionality of these positions. She had issues about the numbers, On the same issue, the court where Visram sat, they're also very clear about numbers. And the issue that came in the first case was about process. Now, the process issue was keyword, because the court said because there was no public participation and because there was no interviews, the recruitment process had not been done properly. Therefore, it was ruled as unconstitutional on the basis that it did not follow the process as established in the Constitution. The current administration, what it did was to ensure that they go through do the things that the court had requested that be done. One, public participation was done to cure the issue that had been raised. Secondly, the process of advertising, recruitment, interviewing, and recruitment was also followed. So the issues that were raised in the first case were set aside on the basis that the government followed the process as prescribed by the court, Honorable Speaker. So the issues of constitutionality as raised by the Honorable Wandai do not hold water, especially on a bill which has gone through the committee, and the committee has looked at it and seen the issues they are in and have said that these issues as raised, and I have read the dissenting opinion of the senior counsel, Otiende Amolo. And in his dissenting opinion, is actually very shaky, based on the rulings that have been made, based on what Parliament is in the Parliament is in the process of curing the issues that the court has talked about. So, Honorable Speaker, reject and refuse to be invited by the Honorable Wandai to get into the debate of the bill, because that is what he's inviting you to do. On the issues of constitutionality, this Parliament and these honorable members are able to sit to look at the issues that are in there, make amendments at a committee of the whole, and ensure that the bills that we pass in this House are constitutional, are lawful, and they're going to take us forward as a country, and not the back and forth in which Honorable Wandai is inviting you to entertain. Honorable Speaker, refuse that entertainment. Again, Honorable Speaker, on the issue of the head of the public service, the office of the head of public service, as initially construed within the law as also the office of the chief of the secretary to the cabinet, we are trying to draw a line and say we can have within the office, the executive office of the president, a head of public service who can do the work that can be done without necessarily having to have the chief, the secretary to the cabinet do the same jobs. We have seen inefficiencies. We want to cure the inefficiencies. But the Honorable Wandai is inviting you to look at a constitutional issue that is non-existent, especially on the office of the head public service. Honorable Speaker, I will request you to reject that invitation, allow this parliament to debate these laws and make a position, and we pass a good law that can stand the test and can also stand any litigation in any other court in this country. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, honorable members. Thank you, Honorable Wandai. I've heard you. It is not a motion for you to reply to. No. There is no right of reply here. You raised your protestations and members have contributed. You will reply. Okello will want to reply. Everybody else who spoke will want to reply. There is no provision for that. I direct as follows that the debate at order number 10 will proceed. Once it is done, if the speaker here will not be on the chair, whoever will be relieving me, no question will be put until I give a ruling tomorrow afternoon before we move to the next level. So who was on the floor? Honorable Gertrude Mbeyu, Kilifi, women rep, was on the floor with 8 minutes to go. She's not here. Now the screen is full. I don't know if it's full for this bill. Rindikiri Mugambi is not here. He's on the screen. Robert Mbui.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I stand to reject this bill, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, you know what this bill seeks to do is actually what Kenya Kwanza opposed vehemently during the 2022 campaigns. Mr. Speaker, you know that we were told that this regime would not create offices. In fact, we were told that the debate during the last campaigns was between those that are looking for positions and those that are responsible and responsive to the needs of the mamamboga, the boda, the so-called hustler. But Mr. Speaker, what is the reality? That when we came into this house, the first order of business, Mr. Speaker, was the creation of office of Prime Cabinet Secretary. Immediately after that, the creation of the office of the official leader of the opposition. Now, this bill confirms what we have always said, that the intention was always to create offices. Mr. Speaker, here, the first office being created, which we have said is unconstitutional, is that office of the head of the public service. And Mr. Speaker, before the committee in its wisdom rejected some of the proposals, one of the proposals was that the head of the public service would be the custodian of the public seal. In essence, you are going to take away the responsibility of the Attorney General and take it to State House and give it to a person who sits there as a personal assistant to the head of state. Mr. Speaker, this was really ridiculous. I want to thank the committee for having rejected that, because that has been pulled out and the committee says that wasn't making sense. But Mr. Speaker, more importantly is the creation of the offices of chief administrative secretaries. Mr. Speaker, this is an office we've all seen. The purpose of these offices is actually to reward political losers. Look at what happened in the last regime under Jubilee. All those people that were losing elections and were aligned to the regime of the day were being given these positions. Mr. Speaker, you remember when we had actually assistant ministers. I remember the late Honorable Kalembe Ndile. He stood on the floor of this house and he told Kenyans that what assistant ministers do is to have a cup of tea in their offices and read newspapers because there was not enough work. I wonder what has created more work. Is there more work under the current system than before? So, Mr. Speaker, I'm standing.
Order, Honorable Mbui. Honorable Meli is on a point of order.
That is it in order for Honorable Mbui to misinform the House that the issues raised in local, maybe bars and whatever, are actually brought to this house because what he's actually saying is that the late Kalembe Ndile did allude that if you are an assistant minister, then you need only a cup of tea, and that's the whole of the office. There are many offices that have been created that are substantive to this country. So is it in order for him to actually misinform the House?
Continue, Honorable.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for telling me to continue. That means you agree that we ignore the point of order. But, Mr. Speaker, I just want to finish by saying that as a country, we need to be careful with the promises we make. And when we make promises, it is important to also keep them. In fact, I can say there's so many good ideas that come out of the leaders' mouths. Unfortunately, the implementation becomes a problem. If Kenya was to follow the promises made by leaders, our children today would all have laptops, Mr. Speaker, all the way from grade 1 up to university, Mr. Speaker, because that was a promise that was given during campaigns. If promises were to be followed, Mr. Speaker, our children would have free primary education, free secondary education, and free university education. We would have free health, Mr. Speaker. Unfortunately, what happens is that we say one thing and we mean another. And, Mr. Speaker, because I feel that this regime is only intending to find a way to reward the people that lost the last election and also to reward those that have defected. And that is a way to lure them. Mr. Speaker, I oppose this bill.
Honorable Rasso.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I rise to support this bill on the many grounds. One of it, we have been having offices in this country. In the last administration, we had the chief administrative secretaries. It was really confirmed, and many of us agreed that it was not anchored in law. And those chief administrative secretaries, some of them appeared before select and departmental committees of this House, and it left a lot to be desired, because many of us felt, how can an individual who is not known appear before a committee and transact on behalf of a ministry or a department? So for that reason, anchoring these offices in law is really important. Honorable Speaker, Article 234, Sub-Article 2, Sub-Article A says, subject to this Constitution and legislation. It doesn't isolate only to the Constitution and the legislation. It actually clarifies that the Constitution itself is not holistic unless it is continuously improved by continuous legislation. And Article 94, Sub-Article 5 is clear that only Parliament will make law or create offices and challenge anything that comes up in law that can stand the winds of the time. It is only Parliament. And that is clearly stated in Article 94. Honorable Speaker, Article 234 further says that establish and abolish offices in the public service and appoint persons to hold or act in those offices and to confirm appointments. That is the responsibility of the Public Service Commission, to create offices, abolish them, and also to confirm appointments of individuals. Honorable Speaker, Article 132(4), the functions of the President, 4A. The President, as otherwise provided for in this Constitution, may establish an office in the public service in accordance with the recommendation of the Public Service Commission. What this bill, those of us who sat in that committee realized is that the president on his own cannot run this great country called Kenya. He will be able to run Kenya by having others who will come on his wings and support his administration. And that is why it doesn't say the president will appoint those officers by fiat. He actually does it, or she actually does it, by consulting with the Public Service Commission. So for that reason, Honorable Speaker, I think for generations, we have had the head of public service, which is a very important office in this land, and at times referred to as the chief of staff. This office has never been anchored in law, yet 4 previous successive administrations have had those offices. But for the first time, the Kenya Kwanza administration realized that we cannot have offices that exist outside both the Constitution and the legislation. And that is why it is being anchored in the laws of the land, so that those officers who are appointed can legitimately and constitutionally transact on behalf of the Republic of Kenya. With those remarks, Honorable Speaker, I beg to support.
The Honorable Ndini Nyoro. Honorable Ndini Nyoro.
Thank you very much, Speaker. I am queuing for the next motion.
You?
I'm queuing for the next motion.
Oh, you're queuing for the next motion. Oundo, Honorable Oundo.
Honorable Speaker, other than the first part concerning the assumption of the office of the President Act, I stand to totally oppose this bill. I stand to oppose the National Government Administration Laws Amendment Bill on a matter of principles, on matters of the Constitution, and matters of the spirit of the Constitution of Kenya. Honorable Speaker, the essence of the 2010 Constitution was to make the executive lean, accountable, and less intimidating. Many of us who have been around for some time remember the overbearing nature of the former holders of the so-called office of Head of Public Service. Many remember Honorable Nyachae, Ezekiel Yugi, and the rest. Honorable Speaker, those who drafted the 2010 Constitution sought to cure the excesses imposed by the various offices. Honorable Speaker, let's start looking at the bill one by one. Honorable Speaker, if you go to the one amendments to the National Security Council, Honorable Speaker, Article 240 is explicitly clear what constitutes the composition of the National Security Council. And Honorable Speaker, you are the Speaker here, and you represent the Speaker. And this is a matter that the debate will continue until we are able to resolve this matter conclusively. A committee's report with the amendments, there is no guarantee that those amendments will be carried at the committee of the whole House. So essentially, the substantive document we are dealing with, which could pass with or without amendment, is the published bill. So to come and now hoodwink and tell Kenyans that we have removed the offensive unconstitutional provision, so let's debate and pass the bill, is what we used to call, I wouldn't want to say it here, it might be as a parliamentary. Honorable Speaker, when we go to the next provision that deals with the office of the National Security Advisor, ordinarily all over the world, in even enhanced democracies, modern democracies, the office of the National Security Advisor, an advisor is an advisor, works at the helm, at the fiat of the president, at the pleasure of the president. So consequently, Honorable Speaker, cannot be legislated. Let those one work as they are. Honorable Speaker, of course, the most damaging amendment to this particular bill is now the creation of the office of Head of Public Service. Honorable Speaker, and when we look at the provisions that the jobs, the duties have been assigned, as the bill here, one of them is to be the administrative head of the executive office of the president, which again is not an office defined in the Constitution. Secondly, Honorable Speaker, the decisions of the president, as contemplated in Article 135, are supposed to be in writing and shall bear the seal and signature of the president. That is so instructive that, Honorable Speaker, the nation of Kenya, the people of Kenya, should not lose sight of. At no any time was there any contemplation that somebody else will write on behalf of the president and sign any document for the functions bestowed on the president on behalf of the president. Article 135 has been very clear on the signature and the communication coming from the president. It has been an anomaly all along that you find quite a number of pronouncements that touch on the core mandate of the office of the president, the presidency, the president, signed by any other person other than the president. Honorable Speaker, if indeed the head of the public service serves at the pleasure of the president, as indicated in this bill, that position, therefore, Honorable Speaker, cannot be a state office, as defined under Article 260. That becomes an errand boy of the president to serve at the pleasure of the president. Any incoming administration ought to have and will always have a different style of executing their mandate, of running their government, saddling them with an office created by an act of parliament that is unconstitutional, Honorable Speaker, is essentially tying the hands of the new administration that could have otherwise wanted to do things in a completely different manner. Honorable Speaker, in the wildest dream, why would any drafter, how would a sponsor of a bill of such a magnitude indicate, Honorable Speaker, that the head of the public service, shall be the custodian of the public seal and any other instruments of state that are not in the